Welcome to Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Being a fireman, father, veteran, husband, world record holder, and Ironman, he brings stories of experience to impact your life while challenging you to live it. What do you want from your life? Why do you want it? Are you willing to go through the challenges to get there? If you have the courage to take that first step, let this podcast be the catalyst to start your fire, while you bring the resilience to make it continue to burn. Our lives are made up of moments called right nows. So let's get started. Forged in the Fires podcast with your host, Fireman Rob, begins now.
All right, welcome back to Forged in the Fires podcast. I'm your host, Fireman Rob. Today's guest is an amazing individual who is constantly impacting not only our community here in Dane County, but throughout the nation, and is one of those people that if I went through all of his accolades, it would actually take up the whole 30 minutes of the show. So I'm going to actually just introduce him. He is the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Dane County. His name is Michael Johnson. Thank you so much for being on today.
Hey, Rob, thanks for having me on, man. My pleasure.
I love your story, the amount of things that you've done, not only for, children's life, but for adults. I want to go back to your childhood and give everybody perspective of you came up in the Boys and Girls Club, and it was an impactful part of your life when you started out.
Yeah, so, I grew up on the west side of Chicago, went to the Eisenberg Boys and Girls Club right off Taylor Street. And it was just a place that I found a sanctuary, right? So, I grew up in a neighborhood that was infested with gangs, drugs, and, prostitution. And I knew, as a kid, watching a lot of my friends go to jail, watching, my friends being killed on the streets, that I wanted something better for my life and didn't quite know what I wanted to do with my life. But I know I wanted to live and I wanted to do something great to be of service to other people. And that Boys and Girls Club, while it wasn't the greatest building, there was a lot of people, in the Eisenberg Club who loved kids, and you knew it when we walked in that facility. And I believe, that place kept me alive and kept me out of trouble. And so I'm forever grateful to Boys and Girls Clubs.
It's amazing how all that transition. I mean, if you look at your resume, it speaks to your giving to others. You're constantly striving to make great waves in just having children and families see that there's potential and possibility. How does that transition from you really having experienced it firsthand to how you are the CEO now of the Boys and Girls Club? How does that translate to you?
Man, Rob, I mean, coming from humble beginnings, I'm thankful, right? You know how some people say, well, I knew we were poor, but it didn't feel like we were poor.
Right.
I knew we were poor, and we felt the challenges in our family. But, I had a single mom who had some mental health issues, but I knew she loved me. I knew she tried her best to provide. And I started working at 13 years of age. I would go to the Boys and Girls Club. I would go work at this grocery store right across the street from the high-rise building that I grew up in, because I wanted to help provide and support, my mom as she went through, challenges in the latter part of, her life. And so when I look at like issues that families face today, like I'll give an example. When my mother died, we had no insurance. And I remember I was a volunteer at Boys and Girls Clubs trying to get employed. I was at Boys and Girls Club maybe 3 months, and then my mother passed away. And I was working on the south side of Chicago. And there was a director by the name of Marianne Hughes, who is now the CEO of the Boys and Girls Clubs, the Union League Club of Chicago, went and took up a collection, and they buried my mother. And I don't know how we would have gotten through that without the support, of Boys and Girls Clubs. And so when I look at the stuff that we do in Madison, where there's been times where we raised, money to help, support kids who have fallen victim to violence, or, a family whose house has been burned down, There's real challenges that come with those kinds of things. And so we try to use our influence and our position, in the community to try to get resources to those who might find themselves in challenging circumstances.
That's so powerful. And a quote here that I have from you that, right after the protests and everything that happened and the division that we've had, your quote was, we did many things you don't typically see Boys and Girls Club do, but that's the point. When kids' futures and your community's well-being are at stake, doing whatever it takes is exactly what we must do. It speaks volumes to who you are. And the vulnerability, one, that, telling your story, but two, being able to have that voice for those people who don't feel like they have a voice. What does that feel like for you to be able to do that for other people?
It comes with, for what much is given, much is due, right? And so,
right.
Over time, we've raised a significant amount of resources for kids in our community. And there's a lot of people who sing our praises and provide a lot of support, but there's also a lot of critics, right? When you step out there on controversial issues, some people will like the stances you take, and some won't like it. What I've learned over the years is that I've just tried to follow my gut, try to get the temperature of what the challenges are, and then try to have an intelligent conversation around how we move an agenda forward that's going to help young people in our community. And that's what I've tried to do for the last 13 years that I'm here, that I've been here. And I've always just tried to lead with my heart and have tried to bring other people along in doing that, whether it's giving away a car to a family, or whether it's building a new house for a family, or whether it's helping a family that might be going through a crisis, or from a programming level, helping thousands of kids, graduate from high school and go on to college. I believe when you do the right things, you'll be blessed in the process. And karma, like if you go around dogging people, mistreating people, it'll come back to you. Right. But I believe that when you do good by people, I just firmly believe that the world will spin around and come back and do good things with you.
And I love, you don't just speak the message. Your actions are so powerful in that you deliver these things. Yeah. I mean, just a quick figure that in the time that you've been CEO of Boys and Girls Club, the operating budget, you grew it by 395%. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
But then you quadrupled the number of employees, which is also amazing part of being able to expand it so that, like you were saying, to be able to have kids graduate high school, giving scholarships and being able to provide those other things. What is it that you see as the legacy? I know that you had talked about when you went through that Harvard Business School, Dr. V, the eye doctor from India.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that part of you, that legacy that you want to leave behind.
Yeah. So when I was in the Harvard Business School program, they did these case studies, and it's interesting. They've now agreed to do a case study on our organization. And out of all the case studies we went through, I was very intrigued by this guy named Dr. V in India who built, there was a huge issue with people from India going blind. And he started this eye clinic and he wanted to expand it, but he didn't have the money to be able to do it. He wasn't fundraising enough to be able to bring the money in. So what he started doing was asking his friends who were eye doctors to come and work with him, part-time. Mm-hmm. And then as he grew it, he started asking doctors to work for him full-time, but he couldn't afford them to pay them, market rate. So people started volunteering their time. They were so inspired about what he was doing. So he wanted to build a hospital, but he didn't have the money. So he financed his house to be able to do it. And then he built the hospital like one floor at a time until he eventually got where he wanted. and there was like 2 million people a year that was literally going blind. And this was a guy who pretty much, like you talk about a pandemic, that was a pandemic, but in
Yeah.
terms of, people having eye issues. And I was just very, very intrigued, by his motivation, intrigued that he was able to do something that, his local government couldn't do. And that story resonated with me. And so when I think of, Boys and Girls Clubs, I don't know what my legacy will be, but what I will know is that, when it's all said and done, hopefully when 20 years, when I got 20, I think 20 more years of work, maybe 25. I'm 47, so I got a little ways
A little
to go.
time left.
So I'm hoping that, when it's all said and done, that Boys and Girls Clubs will have $75 to $100 million in assets. So this organization will be around for hundreds of years. I'm hoping by the time I'm done that thousands of kids will be able to say, I came through the Boys and Girls Clubs. I got my high school diploma. I got my college degree. And now I'm making a sustainable wage, and I own a home, and I have my own family. And that thousands of kids will be able to say that for decades, at least the next 2 decades that I'll be here. And then I would say we're right now raising $35 million for a workforce center, which we're going to announce on Friday. And our capital campaign, where we want to teach kids how to become plumbers, carpenters, electricians. And I'm hoping that, like through this initiative, that they'll be able to, say that, I left high school and was able to make $75,000, $80,000, $90,000, and that I learned a trade, and that Boys and Girls Clubs opened that door. And I want to bridge the wealth gap in our community. So I hope when it's all said and done, that my family, my wife, my kids would have been proud of me in terms of being a good husband, being a good father, and being a good nonprofit leader in our community.
That's amazing. And I'm going to say that you're well on your way, if not there already. What does it mean to you with your family being there with you? Seeing where you came from and seeing what you're doing for other kids. What does that mean to you for your kids' future?
It means a lot. About a month ago, my oldest daughter, so I have a 17-year-old son, a 12-year-old daughter, and an 8-year-old daughter. And my oldest daughter came to me and said, Dad, I am proud to be your daughter. Oh, wow. And I asked her why. And this was right around Christmas time. At that time, we had just helped our maintenance guy, where our donors helped him purchase a $500,000 home. And it was just absolutely amazing experience. And then we went around town, and I think we took about 100 people on shopping sprees. And it was really the generosity of our donors. So I'm just hoping, when my kids grow up, that they would grow up and know that their dad have always been here for them. And I've learned over the years that you could never put anything above your family. And so I've tried to, balance my life with spending time with my wife, spending time with my kids, support them on the things that they want. Doing things around the house, I want my family to have a nice sanctuary that I didn't have. And so whether it's cleaning up, painting their rooms, or sprucing up outside, I try to do that to make sure that my kids live a better life than me, and that I'm not just this guy that's out in the community and not even taking care of my own family. And I'm proud to, share that, my son is a honor roll student, track. He runs track. He plays football. He's into, rap, and he's doing really, really well. And same as my daughter, she played baseball. She's into music. My youngest daughter is in gymnastics, and she's doing really, really well.
You're busy.
So yeah, busy life, man. But I'm thankful because you could be not busy, and it's a blessing to be able to, have family and to be able to enjoy a career that you absolutely love.
I love that. Going back to when you were younger, and When do you remember, if was there a point where you felt empowered to be able to speak your voice and really show through your actions the importance of what you were looking for without that fear?
No, I came later in life. So,
Okay.
I was a special ed student, and I had stuttering issues. And it took me, I couldn't read and write at college, at the collegiate level. So I ended up spending about 5 years, 4.5 years at Malcolm X College on the west side of Chicago. So I had to take 2.5 years of preparatory courses, and then I had to take 2 years to get my associate's degree. And it was really there where I took a public speaking class. And the teacher, the professor there at the time was like, just keep practicing in the mirror and you'll get better, Michael. Like, just write out your own words. And I did that for about a year, just practicing, being comfortable speaking, in front of people. And then at that time, I was volunteering at Boys and Girls Clubs, at a John L. Yancey Club on the South Side. And then they ended up hiring me as a director about a year later, after volunteering and becoming a program director. And then I got the director job, and that required me to speak. And that made me nervous. And it was really at that point where when I noticed that people would applaud, and then there was some people that was telling me, like, you got to enunciate your words better. There was a senior level person at Boys and Girls Club that was coaching me on that. So I would say it probably was a combination of Malcolm X College and my first full-time job at Boys and Girls Clubs that got me to a point where I felt comfortable speaking in front of people.
And do you see that in the kids when they see you at the Boys and Girls Club? Do you see that transition when they see you standing up there, knowing what you've been through? Do you start to see some of those kids start to take leadership in their lives because of your role model status?
I'm not sure, man. Like, there was somebody who told me the other day he thought I was a millionaire. And and he said, well, I see you raise all this money. And he said, are you going to get a Boys and Girls Club $1 million? I was like, I wish I had it. I said, I raised it, but I don't have that kind of those kinds of assets, but I always donate to Boys and Girls Club. I
donate time. I mean, come on. There's a lot of effort and energy put into that.
Time, talent, but also donate treasure too, right?
Yeah.
And so I had to do my part in supporting the organization. But I say all that to say that now I lost it. Well, tell me the question one more time.
Just do you see other kids that when they see you talking?
Yeah. So I would say it's amazing. Like some of the text messages I'll get, man, I'm about to graduate, or I'm in medical school right now, or Facebook, MJ, thank you for helping my family. Really appreciate it. Or a kid that would say, hey, I read your story in class today. Mr. Johnson, would you come and speak to, our school? Those things do make you like feel good. And I feel like in Madison, for the most part, right, I can go into any community and feel comfortable, whether it's talking to people on the street or talking to high net worth individuals or talking to different races and cultures about a variety of different topics. I've really got to know different groups, in our community. And I'm thankful, like coming from, humble experiences. And all my family pretty much still stay in public housing and still have their fair share of challenges. So staying grounded and, being around them. And a lot of my friends are still in Chicago and seeing some of the challenges that's still happening, there keeps me grounded. And then I try to stay connected to grassroots people in the community, because now I'm finding myself, as we are elevating our organization and our work, because of the nature of my job, I deal with a lot of high net worth individuals. So I try to stay grounded and stay connected to people who are connected to the streets to make sure that I can help keep a pulse on what's going on in neighborhoods throughout Dane County.
That's a huge aspect of it. I mean, that's the biggest aspect, because understanding, because a lot of people transition to different areas and, get educated and go different places. But that's huge to have that an individual like yourself that's actually still embedded in and understands what is needed. And especially with, what happened, one of the things I wanted to go over was just the amazing stuff that you did. What was it, back in 2019? I can't remember. When after some of we had rallies and all sorts of stuff, but you brought 3,000 Boys and Girls Club members to help clean the streets. But then not only that, but you also sat and listened to some of the people who were at those things to be able to understand both sides.
Yeah. So, that was really challenging when all that happened, because there was a lot of people. I think we ended up raising $200,000 for those businesses downtown after just raising $2 million to help. I think 41 different agencies provide support to over 10,000 people within 2 weeks of the pandemic, happening. And then, when the civil unrest happened downtown, I'm glad I got an opportunity. I think myself, Renee Mo, Gloria, who was the president of the school board, Gloria Reyes, and Anthony Cooper, we had all stayed out all night walking and protesting with those young people. And just watching some of the challenges that happened, down there. And there was a group of young people that came to me and said, we appreciate you being down here, Mr. Johnson. But here's an example. Look behind us, and we were in front of the state capitol, and they were like, there's no representation of Black people in the capitol, no representation of other people of color at the capitol. So if you want to do something, get these legislators to make sure that there's at least art represented, of different people at the Capitol. So I called the governor's office the next morning, and then they responded, and the governor's chief of staff has shared with me that there was no real public art display of anyone in the building. So I immediately wrote a letter to the chair of the executive residency board, and now there was a unanimous vote to have Val Phillips, who will become the first Black woman in the United States to have a statue, at the state capitol. And I'm thankful that those young people brought that to my attention. Now, something very, very productive and great came out of that. But on the other side, I had a group of kids who started a petition and wanted me fired, right? And then there was a counter petition from another group of kids that tripled the amount of signatures that was on that one. But I also understood why they were upset with me, right? They were upset because, I had hired some peace officers. There was a group of kids who came to me and said, can you help us have somebody that can be down there giving face masks to the kids? Can you make sure that, if there's adults down there telling kids to break into buildings, that there's at least some responsible adults out there that could try to, persuade some of those young people from getting in trouble. But there was a segment of people in our community that was telling young people that I had folks out, I was working with the police, and I had people out there, spying on these kids, just putting nonsense out there. Yeah. And so these group of kids got together, and I think they were influenced by some adults, and they were writing letters to Boys and Girls Clubs of America, writing letters to my board of directors, calling on me to be fired. And I doubled down. I was just like, I know what I'm doing is right. I don't want to see young people catching felonies. I don't want to see young people getting. That was my message. So I'm not going to apologize for what I'm doing, but I also respect that if you feel like I'm doing something wrong, you voice your concern. The chips fall where they fall. So I've just learned you got to be fearless sometimes. You got to be willing to be uncomfortable to see the changes that you think are the right thing to change and sometimes when you are in an uncomfortable chair around community issues, it's like walking across the bridge. You're going to get walked on from both sides. I've just learned that if you're going to be a bridge maker, you got to be willing to be walked on sometimes from both sides of that bridge.
That's so well said. And again, it keeps going back to your actions. And, there was an interesting, a quote that you quoted in one of your, in your paper, from Martin Luther King Jr. It says people fail to get along because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. They don't know each other because they have not communicated with each other. Tell me more about, you said a little bit in what you did with Madison. What is it in the Boys and Girls Club that you do that kind of accentuates that?
I think that, especially in Madison, sometimes I'll talk to, whether it's my Latino friends. You ever had somebody black at your house, or my white friends? You ever had somebody black or Latino at your house? And a lot of times, different races and cultures don't connect outside of whether it's the workplace or school, or you go into high schools and you'll see in elementary school, you'll see different groups of kids from different races and cultures intermingling. And then when you go to high school, it kind of like they start segregating out. And I don't care what high school in the country you go to, for whatever reason, it's just like that.
Right.
And so what I've learned that you got to get to know people, right? Break bread with people, go to people's houses, get to know them, go on bike rides, go fishing. I remember somebody invited me to a farm. Now, I'm an urban guy who grew up in the projects, and I remember there was a donor invited me to a farm party. And I'll be honest, I don't go to no damn farm party. Oh my God, I just don't want to do that. And I ended up going there and had like the best time of my life. They had four-wheelers on that farm, and we're just out there on the four-wheelers, like out there riding around. They did. Now I don't eat meat anymore, but at that time they had a pig roast, and they were like roasting pigs. They had people out there dancing. I was like, God, this is one hell of a party. And I've become really, really good friends with that family, and really respect them and what they do, in this community. And it's actually Jay and Janet Lowy. And they're just amazing people. I think about John and Joella McKenzie, who had asked me to come visit them in Florida. And at the time, I didn't know them well, but I was trying to get them to give a $100,000 scholarship to one of our kids who have now since graduated from UW-Madison last June, a young Latino woman. And I remember going there, meeting with them, and they were like, well, why are you getting a hotel room? And I said, well, because I think I don't know you all that well, so I think that's best for everybody. So John was like, well, just stay at our house. We got plenty of space. And I was like, oh my God. So I think it was 3 days, and I ended up having such a great time with them. And now they're one of my largest donors who contributed. He was very instrumental. Not only did him and Joella has personally given over $2 million, the Boys and Girls Club, but that has now turned into them helping me raise $25 million over the last 8 months for our workforce center.
That just speaks volumes to that personal connection. Like you said, reach out and communicate, even if you're, a lot of the uncertainty is uncomfortable to a lot of people, but it's not uncertain. Just be human.
Right. Exactly. And it's just about, it's connections mean a lot. So I've just tried to connect with a variety of different people in our community, and so sometimes you might see me with people who might look like this is one guy named Jackie Bodine. If you see Jackie dressed, some people would say he looks like a pimp, right? He's always in suits and big hats and big cups. But this is a guy who I helped him get a job at UW. He's been working, he was in prison about a decade ago. And at the time, we had put together this 15-point plan to try to curb some of the violence in Madison. And he came to every meeting every Monday. And I helped him get a job at UW. I think it's been either 7 or 8 years now. But, Jackie loves to dress. But if you look at him, some people would judge him. Right. This guy has the biggest heart you'll ever meet. But he also keeps me grounded around what's going on in certain segments of our community. Him and other people like Corey and so many others that I deal with. And so not just, people who are high net worth individuals, but people who might be still living in those communities. Right. It just keeps you well balanced, and it keeps you connected. and when you talk about a bridge, sometimes when issues come up, somebody asks me, how do you raise money so quickly when these crises happen? It's because people from the streets keep me connected, and I can make a phone call, usually from a couple dozen people who got the resources to help address those issues.
That's amazing. Well, Michael, it's been a pleasure to have you on here. Make sure you go to bgcdc.org. That is the Boys and Girls Club of Dane County. You can find out more about Michael, find out more about the programs, and also donate. I always end my sessions the same way. I have 3 questions for you. You ready, Michael?
I'm ready.
All right. The first one, if you could go back to your 18-year-old self, what is one piece of advice that you give to yourself?
I want to be like fireman Rob. I would
should be
say,
a Gatorade commercial.
I would say, man, I wish, at 18, I would have taken school a lot serious. I went to Creek Gear High School, one of the lowest performing high schools in the state. And I just wish that I would have just been a little bit more dedicated, at school at the time. And I probably could have went to a better high school. And watching my son, play sports, I wish, I got an opportunity to go play football at the University of Minnesota. But by the time I got there, I didn't have a lot of the fundamentals in place. And I wish I would have just learned that early on. So I would tell 18-year-old Michael to stay in school, to take it a little bit more seriously. And at that time, I was also, I don't know, I just wasn't focused on positive stuff. I was still getting in trouble a little bit, and just thankful that I came up out that environment.
That's good advice for anybody.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, here's the second one. Everybody always has challenges and struggles and dark moments in their life. And if there was 2 habits that you would say would somebody can incorporate into their daily life, what would those 2 habits be to continue to move forward?
Yeah, I would say 1, balance, right? Whether it's balance with family, balance with life, balance with anything. Sometimes we get consumed with one thing over the other, and it throws you off. And I did that in the early part of Boys and Girls Clubs, where I was in the office sometimes for a week, all night long, spend the night there, shower there, constantly working. And it just was not healthy. And you can't operate, like that. It's not sustainable. So I would say balance is critical. And then I would say, I personally am a man of faith. And so I try to, from a spiritual perspective, whether it's whatever you have a way, who you pray to. Right. I just think it's good to have some spiritual component, tied to your life. And then I would also say, balance for me was, my wife. I love her, but she's crazy to some degree. And, but she keeps me balanced, man. And I appreciate her because I think it would be hard that if I was a single guy, I don't know, I probably would just work all the time. Right. And I'm glad I got family that pulls me away from some of my work at times.
I love it. All right, this last one's always fun. If you could have coffee with 3 other individuals that could be deceased or alive at a firehouse table. So in other words, no questions are off the table. It's going to be a spirited conversation. Who would those 3 people be and why?
Man, I was definitely Martin Luther King would be at the top of my list. And, there's no reason even to say why. I mean, he's in my opinion, the greatest civil rights leader to ever walk this earth, and would have loved to have met him and have had lunch with him. I would also say, Dr. V. I
love it.
I would love to sit down and, and talk with him and learn about, what he did, in India, and how he got through that. So he would be the second person. Then third person I would probably say is Oprah Winfrey.
Oh, wow, that's a group.
Yeah. Yeah, she is just knowing like what she went through as a child and how she started her business and what she has become today. Those are three people that I would love to break bread with. And it would have been a fourth person, but I actually had to have breakfast with him last Friday, and it was Denzel Washington.
I read that. I was like, that was amazing.
Yeah, so that was he would have been my fourth person. That's off my bucket list.
He can maybe do the coffee.
It's just call Oprah and make that happen for me, Denzel.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Michael, hey, thank you for everything that you're doing for not only the youth but for communities and for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate you, and thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening and supporting the Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Remember, don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast, and please share this episode with a friend or family. To find out more about Fireman Rob or reach out about a question, go to www.firemanrob.com. Until next time, live your life forged in the fires.